Let me ask you something honest. Have you tried to save money this year and felt like you were fighting gravity? Like, no matter how disciplined you try to be, no matter how many subscriptions you cancel, or how carefully you plan your grocery trips, your bank account just refuses to grow. If that's you, you're not careless, you're not weak, and you're definitely not alone. In 2026, saving money doesn't just feel difficult, it feels structurally impossible. You might even be doing everything right. You track your spending. You compare prices. You avoid lifestyle inflation. You tell yourself this is the month you finally build that emergency fund. And then something happens. Rent increases, insurance renews at a higher rate. Groceries cost more than they did 3 months ago. A small emergency wipes out what little you managed to set aside. It's exhausting. And over time, it starts to feel personal. Like maybe you're just bad at this. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The difficulty you're experiencing isn't primarily about discipline, it's about pressure, and pressure has been building quietly for years. Let's draw something simple on the whiteboard. On the left side, we'll write income. On the right side, we'll write expenses. For saving to happen, income has to consistently exceed expenses, not occasionally, not theoretically. Consistently, that difference between the two is called margin, and margin is what allows savings to exist. Now, here's the problem in 2026. For millions of people, margin has shrunk to almost zero. Wages have increased in many sectors, yes, but fixed costs have increased faster. Housing, insurance, utilities, healthcare, transportation, childcare. These aren't optional luxuries, these are non negotiables. When fixed costs rise, they compress your financial breathing room. You can't simply opt out of rent or electricity. There's also something else happening. Volatility has increased. Hours change. Contract work expands, gig income fluctuates, bonuses disappear. Even salaried workers feel instability through layoffs and restructuring. When income becomes fragile, you can't confidently set aside money when you're not sure what next month looks like. Now let's talk math. Most financial advice assumes a stable equation. Income minus expenses equals savings. But that equation hides two critical variables, timing and compounding. First, timing. Even if you technically earn enough over a year to save, cash flow matters month to month. If bills cluster at the beginning of the month but income arrives unevenly, you experience liquidity stress. Liquidity simply means having cash when you need it. You can be profitable on paper and still run out of money in real life because of timing mismatches. That's not overspending, that's a cash flow design problem. Second, compounding costs. When margin is thin, small disruptions create cascading effects. A late fee leads to a credit card balance. That balance accrues interest. Interest reduces next month's margin. Reduced margin increases stress. Stress reduces decision quality. This is how saving becomes mathematically harder over time. The system compounds friction. Now, look at inflation. Inflation doesn't just make things more expensive, it raises the baseline cost of stability. When essentials rise in price, you can't substitute easily. You can't choose to not buy food. You can't decide to skip insurance if it's required. Essentials crowd out savings first. That's why many people feel like every raise disappears instantly. It's not disappearing. It's being absorbed by rising baseline costs. There's also a psychological dimension. When margin shrinks, your brain shifts into short-term survival mode. Research on scarcity shows that financial stress reduces cognitive bandwidth. When you're constantly calculating what can wait and what can wait and what can't, long-term planning becomes harder. Saving requires future orientation. Scarcity forces present focus. That tension is exhausting. So the math tells us something clear. Saving requires surplus plus stability. In 2026, many people have neither. Now zoom out. Why is this happening systematically? Over the past decade, risk has increasingly shifted from institutions to individuals. Employers rely more on flexible labor. Housing markets have become financialized. Healthcare costs fluctuate unpredictably. Insurance models reprice risk annually. All of that variability lands on households. You absorb the uncertainty. At the same time, social safety nets often phase out abruptly. Earn slightly more, lose benefits, move slightly above a threshold, lose assistance. These cliffs reduce the incentive and sometimes the ability to build savings. The system rewards predictability but punishes volatility. And volatility is now normal. Here's the deeper issue. The economy optimizes for efficiency, not resilience. Businesses aim to reduce idle capital. Just-in-time supply chains minimize slack. That mindset trickles down to households. We've normalized living with no buffer, but a system without buffers is fragile. When shocks occur, individuals carry the burden. This is why saving feels harder, not because you forgot to skip coffee, but because the economic environment has reduced margin, increased volatility, and amplified consequences. Now, does that mean saving is pointless? No, but it does mean the strategy has to change. Instead of focusing only on maximizing savings rate, the real focus should be rebuilding margin and reducing volatility. That might mean prioritizing predictable income over slightly higher but unstable income. It might mean building small buffers first, not large emergency funds. Even a few $100s of flexible cash can reduce late fees and interest spirals. It also means redefining success. In a high pressure economy, stability is success. Avoiding catastrophic debt is success. Reducing stress is success. Saving in 2026 may look slower and smaller than traditional advice suggests. That doesn't make it failure. Another practical shift is designing around timing. Align due dates where possible. Create micro buffers before major goals. Treat liquidity as more important than optimization. Accessible cash often provides more protection than locked investments when volatility is high. And finally, clarity matters. When you understand that the difficulty is structural, shame loses power. Shame drains energy. Clarity restores it. When you stop blaming yourself for systemic pressure, you can make strategic adjustments instead of emotional ones. Saving money in 2026 is hard because margin is thin, volatility is high, and essential costs are rising faster than stability. That's math. But math can be understood. And once understood, it can be navigated more intelligently. You're not broken. The environment is demanding. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is resilience. And resilience starts not with guilt, but with understanding how the game is actually structured. That shift from self blame to economic awareness might be the most valuable return on investment you make this year.